Let's bring in Senator Ted Cruz, D.C., Texas. You know Senator Cruz, even if you don't recognize him behind the beard. Now, I ran into him a couple of months ago in Washington, and he was attending the Best Friends Foundation dinner where I was a speaker, and Senator Cruz didn't have to do that. Okay, there were a couple of politicians there, and the Best Friends Foundation helps inner city black kids. Kids who are disadvantaged, don't have a father, whatever. It's a mentoring organization. I've been with it for years, and you know me. I vet these people. So I grabbed Cruz and we chatted for a little bit, but I'm very pleased that he's on the program tonight. So let's go to the Trump situation. You see this indictment about this color of law thing? I mean, what is this?
Well, sadly, Bill, you're right. It's completely unsurprising. And we've seen over the last 2.5 years of the Biden administration, we have seen an almost complete and total weaponization and politicization of the Department of Justice, of the FBI, of the machineries of law enforcement. The last book I wrote is entitled Justice Corrupted: How the Left Has Weaponized Our Legal System. And it walks through how, starting with Barack Obama, the machinery of justice began directed at the opponents of the Obama White House, whether it was the IRS targeting conservatives or the FBI or the Department of Justice going after those who were political opponents. It then traces how, when Donald Trump became president, many of those hardcore partisans burrowed into career positions at the Department of Justice and throughout the federal government. And for the 4 years Trump was president, they waged war against Donald Trump. They wanted to bring down the democratically elected president of the United States. Now that Biden is president, they are out in the open. They are brazen. Jack Smith is someone who sadly has been involved in partisan prosecutions before. Jack Smith was involved in the prosecution of Bob McDonnell, the governor of Virginia, Republican governor, was a credible presidential candidate until DOJ went after him. They prosecuted him. They convicted him. And the case went up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court reversed the conviction 9-0. Every justice said
that was
this
about
is legally baseless.
Governor McDonnell accepting gifts from certain people. It's what they're doing with the Supreme Court now.
Yeah.
In the Senate, do any of your Democratic colleagues, would they agree privately that this is what is taking place?
Sadly, they wouldn't.
None of them?
One of the real consequences, I think, of not a one of them.
Really?
One of the sad consequences of the age of Trump is that it broke the Democrat Party. They hate Donald Trump so much that one of the things it's done is it's eliminated moderate Democrats. When I arrived in the Senate in 2013, there was such a thing as moderate Democrats. Today, their fury and rage of Trump have driven them to the far left. So you were talking just a minute ago about the IRS whistleblowers, multiple longtime career IRS employees who risked their entire careers to come forward and say what they're seeing with this Hunter Biden investigation is corrupt, that it's a political cover-up. And what they've alleged is the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, has committed multiple felonies, that he lied under oath to Congress in response to questioning from me before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and that he committed obstruction of justice. And the amazing thing, Bill, not a single Senate Democrat has any interest in learning whether or not the Attorney General's committed multiple felonies, because they are wearing a team jersey.
I do believe that Garland will be impeached in the House. Okay?
I agree.
And I think that will happen in late September, early October. But of course, he's not going to be convicted in the Senate. However, it'll be damaging to Garland, who's not a strong man. I might point out, and I'm going to do this after you leave us, that Bill Barr was involved with this, a Republican, and Eric Holder, the three attorney generals. This started in 2014 with Hunter Biden. All three looked the other way. And in Garland's case, he facilitated the slow walk and helped the Biden family. But Barr, the Republican, he knew what was happening, looked the other way. Do you agree with that?
Look, there's no doubt that Barr should have been much more vigorous in going after this. If you look at the press repeats all the time, David Weiss, the U.S. attorney who's bringing this investigation, is a, quote, Trump-appointed U.S. attorney.
Yeah, every 2 seconds we hear that. Right.
That's technically true, but the way it works in the Senate for a U.S. attorney, he's the U.S. attorney from Delaware, he cannot get nominated unless both senators from Delaware sign off. There are two Democrat senators from Delaware, Tom Carper and Chris Coons, which means as a practical matter, David Weiss was chosen by the two Democrat senators. And to be clear, in the state of Delaware, Joe Biden is the godfather, so to speak, of every Democrat. And so, look, I got to say, the allegations are really significant that the way this investigation was conducted, the Department of Justice's number one objective was to protect Joe Biden so that the investigators were forbidden from asking about the big guy, asking about money going to Joe Biden.
There's no question about it.
Hunter was set up as the fall guy and the patsy, essentially.
Well, Hunter took the money, and so did Jim. And where's Jim? Nothing happened to Jim. Now, one more question about politics, and then we'll get on to the Biden situation. You ran against Trump in 2016, and now Trump's way ahead in the polls. DeSantis was thought to be a competitor, but DeSantis has not gotten off to a good start, primarily because he doesn't, it's really difficult, as you know, you went through it. I mean, to switch from a state or a Senate or the House into this massive national campaign, and Governor DeSantis is not a particularly charismatic individual, up against, probably the most charismatic president, whether you like him or not, Trump, we've ever had. In your view right now, will Trump get this nomination?
I don't know. I think we have right now basically a two-man race on the Republican side. And I got to say, 6 months ago, the conventional wisdom was that Trump was a dead man walking, that he couldn't possibly win. I thought that was wildly overstated 6 months ago. Right now, today, the conventional wisdom is that Trump is unbeatable and it's a coronation and the race is over. I think that's overstated as well. I think we're going to have a real primary. I am good friends with President Trump. There was no one who was a stronger ally of his when he was president than I was in the United States Senate. And I'm also good friends with Ron DeSantis. I think he's done a terrific job as governor of Florida, and I think we'll have a real race. I'm staying out of the primary. I am Switzerland on this. Whoever wins the nomination, I will enthusiastically support, because I think the agenda we're seeing from Joe Biden and the Democrats has been disastrous for the country.
All right, if you're Switzerland, you got to know how to yodel. Do you know how to yodel, Simon?
Sadly, Bill, I'm going to make a terrible admission. I actually played Max in The Sound of Music in high school, and I yodeled on stage. And no, I will not do it for you on your show today.
All right, now, one of the most overlooked things in this Biden situation, and it came up again today. I don't know whether you follow me or what I'm doing here in our independent news agency, which is both a combination of radio and television, so we have a big reach, is that Matthew Graves, the U.S. attorney in Washington, and Martin Estrada in Los Angeles, Central California, were both asked by Weiss in Delaware to help.
Yep.
The reason was that Hunter Biden received money, physically received it, in both D.C. and California. Both Graves and Estrada said, no, we're not helping you.
Yep.
Merrick Garland could have ordered them to help. That's number one, correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. Did you know, and we broke the story 2 weeks ago, that Matthew Graves' wife, Fatima Graves, has visited the Biden White House 28 times since the president was elected? Did you know that?
That fact I did not know. I've followed this story very closely, but that his wife has visited the White House, I didn't know that.
We broke it. There is no reason for that woman, who is a left-wing activist, she heads a left-wing group, to have 28 visits in the White House. Now, you take that fact, and now I'm speculating that Fatima Graves was the intermediary going back and forth between the Justice Department. Remember, Matthew Graves and Merrick Garland work in the same building, carrying messages and what else, because you can't put them in writing, they'll be subpoenaed. Can't do it on the phone because they're all taped. All the calls are taped. That's what I think was going on here.
So look, I have no idea what communications were happening with Graves's wife. What I can tell you is that Matthew Graves was a donor to Joe Biden, that Estrada in California was a donor to Kamala Harris, and that Merrick Garland, in response to questioning from me, was told Congress under oath that David Weiss and the prosecution would have everything it needed with no political interference. And when Graves and Estrada said no to prosecuting Hunter, those were the most serious violations. Those were the violations that carried real jail time.
Right.
And they're saying no. What it meant is that even though Hunter Biden had committed multiple felonies, he got a slap on the wrist and 0 jail time.
Right. But it's almost unprecedented that 2 U.S. attorneys would turn down another U.S. attorney who's asking for help. I have never heard that before. But anyway, let's get on to Kate's Law. July 1st, 2015, 32-year-old Kate Steinle walking with her dad in the Embarcadero district of San Francisco, shot dead by an illegal criminal, Jose Zarate. All right? Zarate subsequently put on trial. The jury ruled that it was an accident. He dropped the gun, blah, blah, blah. Zarate had been deported 5 times. He was a drug dealer. He had multiple arrests in this country. And I put forth that there should be Kate's Law, where if you are deported after a commission of a crime in the United States and you come back, that's a crime in itself, where you get 5 years minimum in a federal penitentiary. Now, that law picked up a lot of steam because I was doing the O'Reilly factor, and you were involved with it. And it got filibustered out in the Senate because Mitch McConnell wouldn't put it up as a standalone bill. He attached it to something else that he knew wasn't going to get by the Democrats, and it died. But now you're back, correct? You're reintroducing it?
Yes.
Tell me what it says.
Let me start, Bill, by saying thank you for your passionate advocacy of Kate's Law, because you have had a big and loud megaphone advocating for it. This is a common sense provision. It says that people who are aggravated felons who repeatedly enter the country illegally will face a mandatory minimum prison sentence. And it's something I've authored Kate's Law in the Senate. I've repeatedly forced a vote on the Senate floor on Kate's Law. And sadly, every time we vote on it, every single Democrat votes no. It's a straight party line vote. You know, I've had the opportunity to visit with Kate Steinle's family, her beautiful family. Her father, Kate, died in her father's arms, and her last words to her dad were "Daddy, help me." You know, I got to say, as a father, I cannot imagine a greater agony than losing your child and feeling helpless to save your child's life. And it is indefensible that the Democrats continue to block this common sense law. Overwhelming majority of the American people support Kate's Law, locking up violent criminals who repeatedly enter the country illegally. And yet today's Democrat Party is so extreme that they side with the criminals over innocent American citizens.
Now, do you have any estimate when that vote will come up, or when you'll reconcile with the House? Because I know it's in the House too, the process here.
Look, we're going to continue pressing and using the vehicles that are available to press for a vote. I hope we will get a vote. We've gotten a vote twice previously before using a lot of the Senate. Getting a vote is opportunistic. You've got to find a vehicle that's moving where you have an opportunity to press it forward. But I believe we'll force another vote, and the Democrats are going to have to decide where they are. I will say one dynamic that is different, which is the last time we voted on it, we had not had 2.5 years of open borders under Joe Biden. We hadn't had the worst illegal immigration in our nation's history. 7 million people who've crossed illegally under Joe Biden. We hadn't had last year 853 migrants died crossing illegally into this country. We hadn't had hundreds of thousands or even millions of children physically and sexually assaulted by human traffickers. We hadn't had hundreds of thousands or even millions of women brutalized by human traffickers. We hadn't had what we had last year, more than 100,000 drug overdoses, the highest in history, 70% of which came from Chinese fentanyl crossing our southern border. And I will say the context is different, but when we get a vote, it's going to come down to Senate Democrats. Their constituents support Kate's law, and they're going to have to decide, do they stand for the safety and security of families in their states, or is partisan politics their top priority?
Yeah. You got to embarrass them, and then if in the 24 election, if Republicans get the White House and the Senate and keep the House, then you'll get it passed. Oh, we can't thank you enough, Senator. Very good to see you. Thank you, and check out that Fatima Graves story, because that's going to.
I will do that.
Yeah, I mean, she needs to come in front of a congressional committee and testify on what the deuce she was doing in there while her husband was up to his neck in trying to protect Hunter Biden. Thanks again, Senator. We'll see you soon, I hope.
Thank you, Bill.